All right, welcome back folks. It's time for another 308 video. And today I want to shoot some 168 grain match bullets. We're going to compare the 168 Hornady match boattail hollow point to the 168 grain Sierra match king. Right, these are our classic match bullets for 308. Now in our new Krieger barrel, we've shot a few of the Hornadys and had pretty bad results. So I'm hoping today with a different powder, maybe things will improve. With the 168 grain match king, we haven't shot any hand loads, but we have shot some of the Federal gold medal match factory ammo that uses the 168 grain Sierra match king. These have shot amazing, like really, really good. Some of our best groups so far out of the new barrel have been with this factory ammo. I had run out of those bullets and didn't have any to test with, so I picked up a new box and here we are today. Now for powder, I want to use another classic IMR 4895. This stuff's been around forever. You can find it anywhere, and the burn rate should be just about right, hopefully, to get good function and performance in the AR-10. In the last video, we shot IMR 8208 XBR, and it was really good. Functioned the gun well. It wasn't tearing up our brass. And IMR 4895 is just a couple spots down on the burn rate chart, so I'm hoping this will perform in a similar manner. For brass, just like the last video, we are going to use new Lapua Palma brass that uses small rifle primers, and we're going to keep using the CCI 41 primers. Looking at some different load data sources, the Hornady manual with this bullet, they show a max charge of 43.3. The Sierra manual with their bullet shows 44.7. If we go over to the Hodgdon website, I think they tested with the Sierra. They showed a 45.4 grain max. So 43 to 45 seems to be our max. We're going to shoot up to 43.0 today. Here's what our load data looks like. We'll do 0.4 of a grain increments, which means we start at 41.4 and work up from there. Now I tested the maximum overall length in my rifle for these two bullets and found that with the Hornady, it was about 2.860. So we're going to shoot 2.800 overall length. So with the Hornady, we've got about 60 thousandths of jump to the rifling. With the Sierra, the max overall length was right about 2.830. So with that one, we've got about 30 thousandths of jump. So this one's pretty straightforward. I'm hoping at least with the Sierra, we can duplicate that performance of the Federal gold medal match factory ammo. So we might be in for some good groups today. Now, if you watched the last video, you'll know that we had a little bit of a problem during resizing of our brass. And I accidentally screwed up some flash holes with a decapping pin. Well, today we're not going to do that. I pulled out my Redding die set. First thing I did was I pulled out all of the decapping pins. So yeah, you'll see no decapping pin in our sizing die today. And I'm going to use the neck sizing die. So just want to run them through really quick, make sure the necks are uniform, and then we'll move on to the rest of the reloading process. So that's first. All right, so I'll get the neck sizing die installed in the press. Yeah, just a little bit off the shell holder. Tighten it down, and we're ready to go. So with the neck sizing die, shouldn't need anything more than our dry neck lube. So let's see how these feel. Dunk it down in there, and we'll see what happens. Pretty tight. Coming over that expander ball. You can see we're not quite hitting the entire neck. That's just fine. That should do nicely. This dry neck lube is not really sticking to the case very well. Sometimes you got the graphite powder or whatever settles to the bottom, so let's flip it over and give it some shakes. There we go. Now I got a little bit more towards the top. Hopefully I can get a little bit better coverage. Not really. I don't know if it's maybe the annealed finish for some reason is not picking up the dry lube. There you can see that got some of it there, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. These are being a pain in the butt to get over the expander ball in there. And I think it's just this new brass has got very like small necks. Like the brand new piece, I'm getting a lot of .334s and .335s. And then you put it up in there and it really, like right here, where the neck is going over the expander for the first time, takes a good bit of force. Then it goes up into the neck portion of the sizing die, no problem, and comes out of there. And then coming back over the expander ball is kind of a pain in the butt as well. And they're coming out a little over .336, so like .3365 or something like that. So a little bit bigger than they were out of the box. Yeah, this is being a little bit aggravating. I'm going to switch over to Imperial sizing die wax. It'll make cleanup a little bit more of a pain in the butt, but hopefully it'll make this process a lot easier. Yeah, see that 10 times easier. I think for some reason the finish on this Lapua brass just is not wanting to pick up that dry neck lube right now. Yeah, this is 10 times easier. So cool, I'll get these done and we'll be ready to move on. Okay, so resizing's done. I wiped the lube off the cases. What I'm doing next is using a deburring and chamfering tool to just make sure the case mouth is in good shape. A little bit on the outside, a little bit on the inside, just lightly, nothing crazy. Just want to clean off any burrs that might be there. And then at that point, we're ready for a primer. I'm using a Frankford Arsenal Perfect Seat hand priming tool. And at that point, they are ready for powder. So I've moved on to weighing out our charges. And I am using my Hornady powder measure. Got it full of our IMR 4895. Speeds things up a little bit. Throw the charges a few tenths light and then trickle them up to the final number. Now IMR 4895 is a large granuled extruded powder, so it doesn't run through a powder measure very easily at all, but it's good enough to get you close. So this is the boring part. I'll see you guys over at the bullet seating die here in just a second. All right, folks, time to get some bullets seated. We're using the same die we used in the last video. It's a Hornady custom grade bullet seating die with their micro-just seating stem adjuster on top. In the comments of the last video, somebody asked me whether Hornady dies were more prone to rust than others, because I think they had spotted, like, yeah, look at this, got rust. It's not the dies, it's me, it's my house. I have the worst troubles controlling humidity in my house, and my dies of any brand, it's a constant struggle to try and keep them from getting rusty on me. Now, if I took better care of my things, what I would do after each use is, you know, wipe them down with some gun oil or something like that. That would completely cure everything. But I don't, and this is the result, is, you know, a little bit of surface rust on some stuff. Just thought I'd mention that. So let's see, this die, we screw it down until it touches the mouth of the case, and then back it out at least a turn and lock it down. That's it. So let's back out our seating stem a good little bit and see where this puts us. We're starting out with the Hornady. Our target overall length is 2.8 inches and our target to the ogive of the bullet is 2.185, right? Measuring from cartridge base to the ogive of the bullet. It's a little bit easier and more repeatable way to measure overall length. So you can see we are 105 thousandths too long. So let's go down 50, 100, and we'll go ahead and dial in the 5. So that should pretty much put us right where we need to be, hopefully. I'm still 1,000th long, so 2.186. So let me just kind of breathe on this a little bit, go down just a little, run that one back through, and we'll go ahead and run the next one through as well, and see what these numbers come out to. 2.185 and 2.185. Now, if we measure from the cartridge base to the tip, 2.801, and the other one's also 2.801. That's going to vary a little bit, you know, a few thousandths of variation due to differences in the tips of the bullet is not unheard of. Now, one thing about this IMR 4895, our starting charge here of 41.4, I can still feel powder moving, so we're not compressed. But I think if we jump forward to our max charge, this is probably going to be a slightly compressed charge. So let's go ahead and seat the first one. It didn't sound crunchy, but I'm no longer feeling any powder moving. Let's see if our overall length is a little bit longer now. If it is, it's just barely. We're at 2.187, so 2 thousandths of an inch longer with the max charge. Let me seat another one of those, make sure that's a consistent reading. Yeah, this one's also 2.187. So the last row or two, once they start getting compressed, I'm going to need to tweak the bullet seating die down by 2 or 3 thousandths. So it might just be that last row. I'm not sure yet. So I'll track it as I go along each row and try and figure out where it starts stretching. So I'm on the 3rd row and I can still feel a little bit of powder moving. So I made it to the 4th charge and they still haven't gotten any longer. So it looks like it is just going to be that last row that I need to adjust down by 1,000th or 2. Yeah, so I went about 2 thousandths. And the numbers look perfect, 2.185. Good. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the Sierra Match King. I'm going to back out the die a little bit and start the process over again. Now with this bullet shape, our cartridge-based ogive number is much different. It's supposed to be 2.230 is our target. We're at 2.289, so 59 thousandths. Let me go ahead and dial that in. There it is. Let's see what that gives us. Perfect, 2.230. Let's flip it around and see what our total overall length is. 2.800. Perfect. Let's check the next one here. 2.230. Total overall length, 2.801. So let's jump to the last row and see if these are also a little bit compressed. Doesn't look like it. 2.230 cartridge-based ogive and a total overall length of exactly 2.8 inches. I think the Hornady is a little bit longer bullet, if I'm remembering correctly. So those were just down into the case a little bit more than these Sierras are, which gave us a slightly compressed load with our max charge. But with both of them, we're very, very close to that 100% case fill, which is generally a good thing. A full case can often mean really good standard deviation numbers and consistent ignition and good groups sometimes. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these shoot. And speaking of that, we're running out of stuff to talk about here. So let's go ahead and get out on the range. All right, folks, let's get started. Our gun is an Aero Precision M5E1 setup. It's got a 20-inch Krieger barrel with their M110 profile. I am shooting with my Silencerco Omega suppressor. We've got a Vortex Strike Eagle 4-24x50 scope, and we're gathering velocity with a lab radar chronograph. It is a hot and muggy day. It actually just rained a little bit ago, so extremely high humidity, temperature in the upper 80s. But it's dead calm, no wind to speak of. So it's uncomfortable, but hopefully it'll be good for shooting some small groups. The target's at 100 yards, did I mention that? The dots down there are 1 inch in diameter. We're starting off with the Hornady, the 168 grain Hornady. 41.4 grains is our first test charge. So let's see if these are going to group. All right, so that's not a bad start at all. That group ought to squeak in under 1 inch, I think. Velocity's nice and low, 2491. Looks like we chose a pretty decent starting charge. The brass looks good, so it's all good. Moving on. 41.8 grains is next. All right, I think it's clear this bullet's wanting to shoot. I mean, that's a pretty darn good group, but I really like those three that are right on top of one another. Just need to get rid of those low ones, right? All right, so brass still looks great, everything's great. Next up is 42.2 grains. So I think that first shot that went high was on me. I wasn't quite locked in when the shot went off. I was fighting the crosshair a little bit. I didn't think I pulled it that far, but I just knew when it went off, like, yeah, that wasn't my best shot. So I'm gonna choose to be happy about that group instead of sad. I love how the standard deviations are tightening up. We're all the way down to 4.5 there. That's a great number. Velocity up to 2562. So let's move on. 42.6 is next. All right, that's a good group. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised. Because like I mentioned earlier, the last time we shot this bullet, I think it was with Reloader 15, our groups really were not good. So this is a pleasant surprise here with IMR 4895. One more to go with the Hornady. This is 43.0 grains. All right, so that's a pretty good showing from the Hornady. Velocity up to 2620. Now our case is full. Remember, with the Hornady, we had some really light compressed loads at the top, but we can still jam some more in there, get a little bit more velocity out of this powder. Sad to see the standard deviations kind of go to crap there towards the end, which, I mean, not terrible. 10.5, 14.8, those aren't horrible numbers. They're just not fantastic. But the groups are good. They're a whole lot better than I was expecting with the Hornady. So it's time for me to take a break. We need to let the gun cool down, and we'll move on to the Sierra. All right, so I just took about a 30-minute break to let the gun cool down, get cooled down myself, rest my eyes a little bit, and we are ready to move on to the Sierra Match King. First up, 41.4 grains. All right, that's a great start with the Match Kings. Velocity was 2490. With the same load with the other bullet, it was 2491. So it looks like the velocities are going to be pretty close to one another. The group looks great, and the brass looks great. Yeah, that one, I thought I had pulled it. I think I'm going to end up putting a lighter trigger in this lower. Right now, I've got a very heavy CMC trigger in it. And the reason I put that in there is I have a history of accidentally bump firing a lot with heavy recoiling rifles. I'm a very light trigger puller, and with a lot of recoil, I just end up bump firing. But I think I've mainly fixed that with my grip. Like, I've really been going with a much stiffer grip in the AR-10 to keep my hand moving with the rifle during recoil, and that seems to have stopped the bump firing problems. But I think this trigger, it's a 2-stage trigger. I think it's a 2-pound, 5-pound. So total of a 7-pound trigger. And I might swap something lighter in here because the heavy trigger sometimes is hard to get, just doesn't quite go off the way I want it, I don't know. That's for another day. All right, moving right along. 41.8 grains is next. Outstanding group. Really good. It's what I was hoping for with these Match Kings. That's the sort of groups, we were seeing with the Federal gold medal factory ammo, and it was blowing my mind. So this chamber really seems to love this Match King. All right, moving right along. 42.2. Okay, next up is 42.6. All right, looks like another good one. I'll tell you what, between suppressor mirage, regular mirage, and the smoke, like every time I shoot, it's completely dead calm today. So I've got lingering smoke and mirage, and I'm having a hard time getting my scope focused the way I want it, but the groups are holding together, looking pretty good. All right, last up, 43.0 grains. All right. Man, that is really, really good stuff. So let's get out of this muggy heat. Let's get back to the bench and we'll talk it all out. Okay, let's have a quick look at the brass. And our 100 pieces of Lapua Palma brass, I've managed to shoot them all at this point. The last 5 rows here are from today's targets. So the 5th row would be our max charge with the Hornady bullet. There's absolutely nothing to show you here. Everything was good today. There were a few pieces that maybe got knocked around a touch. Yeah, that one got maybe just the slightest little booger on the rim or something, but it's all extremely minor. Just, you know, what you would expect from running through a semi-automatic action. A couple little barrel extension scratches on the neck. Yeah, there you go, nothing uncommon. But most importantly, our case heads look fantastic. All 100 pieces that I've fired, these are totally reloadable and ready to go again. Here's our max charge with the Sierra Match King, same story. Nothing much to see here. A little bit dirtier, the gun was a touch dirtier when we were shooting these, but no burrs, no circular extractor marks, no primer cratering. So our JP high pressure bolt seems to be doing just fine here, so it's all good. And this is significant because over the last 5 videos or so, we've been tearing up some brass. We've mainly been shooting Hornady. I bought a big batch of Hornady just because it was cheap. And I'm sure if we grabbed a really slow burning powder or picked the wrong load, we're going to be able to tear this stuff up as well. So I think this good looking brass is more to do with, you know, IMR 4895 just being a good choice for the AR-10 rather than, you know, the superior brass. It is pretty sweet brass though. All right, let's move on. All right, so let's have a look at these groups again. Could not be happier. We only shot one group today that was over an inch. It was that center group on the top with the Hornady 42.2 grains of our 4895, and that shot that went high, that's that one that it felt like a bad shot. It just didn't go off the way I was wanting it to. My regular viewers will know I don't pull that very often, right? I try not to blame every bad group on me, but in this case, I've just got to do it. Like I think that was a bad shot. But overall, this was very good stuff, right? Our 4th group was the best one, a .615 inch group. If we had only shot the Hornady today, these would be extremely exciting results. But the problem is they look like crap today, standing next to these Sierra Match King groups on the bottom row that are just ridiculous. 3 of our 5 groups were .4s. Just incredible, incredible. It seems like this barrel, this chamber is just perfect for these 168 grain Match Kings at a 2.8 inch overall length. And like I mentioned earlier, we've seen the exact same thing with the Federal Gold Medal Match factory ammo. We've shot a couple groups with that factory ammo in the .4s. So these are the sorts of results I was expecting. Now, one thing about the Federal Gold Medal Match factory ammo is it was very low velocity, like when compared to the other factory ammo types that we shot through this barrel when it was brand new. The velocity we measured from it was 2531 feet per second. So we already are exceeding that number here today with our reasonable charges of IMR 4895. And we've still got room to move up, I feel like. You know, our max velocity here with the Hornady, it was 2620. With the Match King, it was 2607. We could fit a good bit more powder in there with IMR 4895. And I mean, 2650 should be no problem, and maybe up to 2700 in that range. I don't know. We're gonna have to try it out and see. Hopefully the accuracy holds together. I found it interesting, I don't know if it's a thing or not, but our worst group with both bullets was the center group. That 42.2 grain charge was the biggest with both. I doubt that's significant, but it's interesting, I guess. Our standard deviation numbers were not awesome today. They were average, right? Our best was a 4.5 with the Hornady, but that was the only one that was a single digit. Most of them were between 10 feet per second and 12 feet per second of standard deviation, and our worst number was 14.8. So 10 to 15 feet per second of standard deviation seemed to be kind of the average today, and that's not awesome. But then again, this was brand new brass, so this was fire forming brand new brass. Maybe now that it's fire formed, we'll have it fit in the chamber a little bit better. Maybe those numbers will improve. And also back to our charge weight, where we shot up to 43.0. Now that we're fire formed, we should get a little bit more case capacity, be able to fit some more powder in there. So we've got room to work up, room to narrow down a freaking outstanding load here, especially with the Sierra Match King. Now the funny thing is, when you compare this 308 barrel with my 6.5 Creedmoor series, it's exactly opposite. In that series, the 140 grain Hornady match outshoots the 140 grain Sierra Match King. Like that 140 Hornady match is our go-to bullet that just shoots amazing groups in that series. So I kind of found it funny that it's a little bit reversed here in this series. So your gun could be completely opposite from what we've seen here today. You just got to try different stuff. We have shot some of the 175 grain Sierra Match Kings, and they're not shooting as good as these 168s. So we're still just getting started. Like we've barely broken this barrel in. We've only got a couple videos with it, but so far it is amazing. This 168 grain Sierra Match King, the 167 grain Lapua Cinar has been shooting awesome, and this 168 grain Hornady, those weren't too bad. Like those were still pretty darn good groups. Another thing I want to mention, like while I was editing the video, like the amount of smoke you saw during shots out on the range was just ridiculous. And that has nothing to do with IMR 4895 being a smoky powder. It was all about the weather conditions. It was 100% humidity. It had just rained. There was absolutely no wind to speak of. And it just resulted in this like smoke cloud around me every time I fired a shot. So I've never before noticed IMR 4895 being particularly smoky, or, you know, much more than your standard powders. But watching this video, you might have got the idea that this is like black powder. It's not. So I think that's where we'll leave it. I've got a couple ideas of where we go next. Like I mentioned, we're just getting started here, but we finally have a good shooting, a 308. Like this is extremely exciting. It's been a long time coming. We've been struggling with 308 for years here on the channel. We finally have the right barrel, and today was a lot of fun. So I hope you join me next time. I'll see you then.